So welcome to Let's Talk today, and what we want to discuss is finding courage in these moments. What we are living through right now, what we've just been through with coronavirus, COVID-19, is frightening, and it's literally knocked almost all of us out of our normal rhythms. So the question is, what do you do with that? How do you grow in that? How do you find courage in that? How do you actually establish a new normal? To have this conversation, we brought in Pastor Curtis Honeycutt from our Calvert campus, and he and I are going to discuss how to find courage in a new normal. Let's talk. So, Curtis, let's talk for just a minute about the world we're living in this post, well, it's not quite post, this coronavirus reality we're in, and how it's changed society. So just for me, I actually do not like right now going into stores at all, because I have to put on a mask, in my mind, hiding from everybody. And then I have to stay away from each other, trying to stay 6 feet away, i.e., in my mind, I'm acting like I'm afraid of all humans. And I don't like it. I don't. And I feel like everybody's afraid of each other. And when is this ever going to get back to normal? Let's have a conversation about what do we do in this moment. It is a new normal, but what do we do in this new normal to make it worthwhile, to make it better, to make ourselves prepared to one day get as close to back to what was normal as we can? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it seems like any time that there's, whether it's blue skies and fleecy clouds, they don't last. And whether there's a giant storm, they don't last. But it seems like there's always the people that it doesn't matter which one of those sides that we're on, they figure out a way to keep moving forward. And they figure out a way to use what they have around them. And that's what I'm noticing. You have both sides of I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait. And then you have the other side of people that are, I'm going to use every opportunity that I have right now.
Yeah, there are those that I'm convinced that there are those that in this moment with coronavirus, they're sitting in their house thinking, when this is over, I'm gonna. Well, when this is over, I'm gonna never actually sends you forward. Because when it's over, you end up getting focused on something else. And when that's over, I'm gonna. Well, when you gonna? You know, so what can we do? You teach in the leader track. You guys retooled leader track in the midst of this, and talk about how you did that.
Yeah, so we had our normal program, and we had one group of people that was finishing up and another group that was entering into their second semester.
Right.
And we started looking at the rest of the curriculum, and we're like, okay, this is good, but is this going to be the most important thing for their leadership in the midst of this? Because what we can't do, what you don't do from the pulpit, is act like all this isn't happening and just ignore it and keep preaching what you were going to preach, right? You adapt, you pivot, and that's what good leaders do. So what we did was we brought everything back. We pivoted and we went back to spiritual disciplines. And so we just heightened accountability on it. How are you practicing these spiritual disciplines? How are you? Because what we could do is teach these great things, or we could help them go back to the foundation and back to the basics that give them the roots to withstand whatever this storm might look like, because it might be passing.
Right.
But it also, we don't know. We don't know what it's going to look like. So how do you prepare yourself for that? Well, you prepare yourself by growing your roots deeper.
Well, to some degree, some of this is not going to pass, perhaps in my lifetime. I mean, we know this happened before. I mean, pandemics have taken place in even in modern times. In 1918, considered a modern time. You know, pandemics have happened before, and things did go back to normal eventually. But there are some folks that are never really going to process past this. In order to help them try to, though, I think you're right. I think people have got to go back to the basics. In my conversation through Philippians, one of the main things I'm trying to point out is that Paul had a way that he was spreading the gospel. He would go town to town, gather the thinkers, or go to the synagogue, and when he was placed on house arrest in Rome, that was taken away from him. But he didn't say, when this is over, I'm gonna. He started writing letters to churches that we now call Philippians and Colossians, and we call them the Bible. You know, I mean, that's not when this is over, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
So some of the disciplines that you're asking people to put in place, walk through a couple of those.
Yeah, so big ones right now, you have solitude, silence, you have fasting, you have worship, you have service, you have reading, all of these different things.
Why would you make solitude and silence a spiritual discipline?
Well,
isn't that just being lazy?
Yeah, that's what you would think. So Jesus, he was baptized, and then he leaves for 40 days to solitude and silence. Why? It recalibrated him. He was preparing with fasting, with prayer. He was completely recalibrating in order to. And what's weird is that's what we see in America. We see any kind of stillness or any kind of solitude as I'm wasting time, so we get anxious. Right? And we're missing what's happening because God's speaking to us in the moments. And we're missing it because I'm anxious about what's to come, or I'm regretful or something, or I'm just trying to relive something that was good in my past. I'm missing the fact that I can have this conversation with you right now. I'm missing something with my wife. I'm missing something that God has for me. I'm missing it.
Right. You mentioned Jesus takes 40 days in the wilderness, but go back. Abraham, he's told to leave Ur of the Chaldees, and he leaves. That's a desert experience. He has no idea where he's going until God says, here, stop here. You've got Joseph, obvious desert experiences. He goes through prison and he's all these problems. You've got Moses, you've got David, over and over and over again. Every strong leader, it seems, has that wilderness quiet experience, even if it's being a shepherd or if it's being an outcast, or being both in Moses' case. Well, God uses that.
But one of the things that we're teaching too, like for me, solitude's really easy. I'm an introvert. I can go in the woods by myself and stay there. I'm fine.
Right.
But for other people, other parts of these spiritual disciplines are more natural. So what we'll tend to do is we'll look at 8, 9 of these disciplines and be like, well, I like reading and I'm good at service and I'm doing well there. Cool, I'm doing great. But what we challenged everybody to do was we're all in a group together, and they have to send pictures of the spiritual disciplines after we went through them and taught on them, the one that you like the least.
Right.
Because what are the ones that you haven't? What are the ones that you're ignoring? What are the...
Right.
Sitting there, it's different sitting there and reading a book than it just is listening. It's different sitting in stillness than it's different driving your car in the silence and just letting your thoughts come and flow out rather than I always have to have noise on. And we think that even if it's a podcast or it's a book or it's something good, that we're growing.
Right.
And yes, to a point, but also if we're not processing the information we're taking in, all we're doing is causing more anxiety and more frustration.
That quiet time has got to be there. I try constantly to tell pastors when we do leadership lessons, I use the phrase, it's your time of creative boredom. You need that, because in those moments of creative boredom is when God starts to change and recalibrate your heart and your head and your thoughts. And if you don't have that, you're constantly you may be very good at making quick on-the-fly decisions and here and leading like that, and that can be invigorating. But it's in those quiet moments that God takes you to deep places and says, look at this. And you start going, oh, and you start changing.
Well, you get to tap into his perspective for a minute. So if I'm 29 years old. So even compared
just a baby.
But even my experience is so limited.
Right.
And so if it's true that I'm up against an enemy that has been around for generation after generation after generation, he's studied person after person, pattern after pattern, and I think that my strategy is going to beat him out, I think that I'm going to win, I don't think that he can be setting me up into a trap. Those disciplines root me in a place where I can start to hear now. And I know the difference of the voices because my ideas can seem really good for a while.
Right.
And it becomes for lack of a better term, it becomes its own bottle of wine, being able to make your own decisions and you're just running and things kind of work. It's like a slot machine. Yeah. Every once in a while I'm going to get one and it works and I get excited and I keep pushing forward, but we can tap into that daily.
So for somebody that just feels trapped in this moment, For somebody that's caught in, and maybe they just realized it as we said it here, when this is over, I'm gonna. So someone that's caught there and doesn't know how to get out of that. What do you think? What would be? I know you said silence and solitude. What would be an action point you would have them take?
Spend more money on the inside of your head than you do on the outside of it.
That's a good line. You should write that down.
But it's true. Like, you watch what people are doing with their spare time and resources right now, and I don't think a lot of people are using it really well.
Right.
So for me, I think right now, in order to grow, we have to start. That's why we took them back to the basics, because it's now I'm going to start pursuing. Here's what's important is, I know for me, as I started attacking these foundational disciplines, the habits that I wanted to break, the things that I wanted to change in my life a long time ago started to naturally take place.
Yes.
They became easier, and something was in me that felt good to fight before. It felt good to like fight through the pain of wanting to do something and not doing it, the pain of wanting the cookie and leaving it there, the pain. But as I started doing these spiritual disciplines, you started to get in this kind of flow state where the decisions seemed easier to make.
Right.
I was more present in the moment. I was understanding more of what was happening. And so, I mean, right now, going back to some of these basics, what are the things that you're not doing that you know you should be doing?
Yeah. See, I often feel like people that are trapped in a moment, they get there and in their minds they get trapped, because quite frankly, you are far more confined when you're confined in your mind than you are when you're confined physically in a room. Your mind can confine you indefinitely. And I think sometimes folks that get trapped in that, they're afraid to go outside. They're afraid to do whatever. And listen, this whole thing is real. The threats are real, but you can't live in fear. And I think people that are trapped in that moment, they need some way to take that first step. And whether that first step is solitude, which may not be it because they've been alone for a long time, but maybe it is prayer. Maybe it is come up with one thing you're going to do tomorrow. I remember dealing with people who were depressed in their house, and I'm like, tell me one thing, just one thing, and I don't care if it's important or not, that you are going to accomplish tomorrow. And just by doing that, they began to point their mind in a direction. And sometimes I think people need that first step. And if in this situation, if that first step is put on a mask and go grocery shopping, or if that first step
clean your room.
Clean your room.
Seriously, because
take a shower.
Take a shower. Yeah. Take a shower, people. Clean yourself. But seriously, if you go, and everybody's had this experience, you're sitting there and you're thinking about how messy the house is. I don't want to clean it. I don't want to clean it. And while you're thinking about it, for some reason, you get up and you just do a dish, and then it's like, oh, I could do another one. I do it. The next thing you know, you're lifting stuff up, you're vacuuming, you're cleaning your room, you're going through the closet. You get in this, you just have to do something.
Yes.
You have to start.
Yes.
And there's no idea that we could just throw out that's the perfect solution. There's no, you just have to do something.
And start means something different for everybody. Take the situation we're in, and some people are going to be very ready to just go out, not get in a crowd, because nobody should do that, but go out and go somewhere socially distanced but with a group, you know, those type things. Other people, that's not going to be their first step. It doesn't matter what your first step is. You just got to take one. Because quite frankly, what you can't do is stay trapped in your mind. You can't stay trapped in your head, because if you stay trapped in your head, this thing is going to lock you away. I know I had to process, we're sitting talking, and my mother is in North Carolina, right? And she's in a wonderful situation. God is so taking care of her, and she lives with one of her best friends in a in-law apartment. Well, their daughters have decided that their parents and my mom are not leaving the house for any reason, and so they literally, mom will write a shopping list out, and the daughters will go buy it and bring it back. See, it's kind of awesome, you know. So my boys were talking to me, and they were like, well, I guess that's, you know, we wouldn't want you to go out or anything like that. And I'm just I just sat there for a minute, and I guess I thought about it from my mom's perspective, and I just quietly looked at him and said, I don't want you to do that. Because one of the in the midst of this, confession time for me, it's been 15 years About 15 years since our family had Saturdays, because we do church on Saturday. And so on Saturdays, we just came to the house and we all cooked something we'd never cooked before. And all of a sudden, our family's always been close, but this thing came even closer. There was a blessing. That's what I used in my first teaching in Philippians, but there was a blessing in the bunker, you know, and I think if you can find that, I think everybody can find that. And I'm not trying to be shallow about it. Find that, revel in that, and build on that, and find in there your first step.
Well, and people are there's two ways that people get moving, usually. You're either pushed by pain or you're pulled by vision.
That's good.
It's one of the two, right? I'm either going to be so uncomfortable or so disgusted or so frustrated that I'm going to finally move, or I'm going to have a vision that's compelling enough that I'm going to take the first step. Right. But even for you, it was natural to go to Saturdays like that because we've had conversations. You have a clear vision of what you want your family to look like.
Right.
You have thought that through. You've written about it. You've spoke about it. You've talked about it. We've talked about it. So you have that clear vision for your family. So the next step became logical. It's like, well, this is an opportunity now.
I can't be with the world. I'll be with my family.
Yeah.
You are so funny. I just have to take a moment. Somebody told me recently that you and I think alike, just very different generations. So how did you say that? You're going to be
pushed by pain or pulled by vision.
Okay, and I would say either God's going to lead you as a shepherd or drive you as a cowboy, and you get to choose. You know, so, I like yours better. So I like yours better. So there.
Well, but I think here's what a lot of people feel like, and because it's true, you're either pushed by pain or pulled by vision, but sometimes it's hard to start. Because it feels like every single time I've tried before, it never works, so why would I try anyway?
Right.
And we get to the point eventually where we're disgusted enough where we start to move again. But there was this one, my little brother, when Calvert first opened, I said, hey, I need you to come to church today, and I'm going to call you up on stage. And I just need you to walk to me when I call you. He said, okay. So he stood on one side of the stage, and I stood on the other. And I said, Vincent, walk to me. And he starts walking. And I said, now fall down. And he very dramatically fell on the ground. And I said, here's what Satan makes us believe. And I walked across the stage and I grabbed his foot and I drug him back to where he started walking from. Anytime that there's something external that happens to us that feels like suffering or that is suffering or that causes pain, or anytime that we say we're going to do something and we fall short, we start telling ourselves this story that, well, I'm never going to change, or things are never going to change for me. And I feel like the devil at that point is just laughing. I got you right where I want you. He's dragging you back. The difference, it's the same wind blows on us all. It's the set of the sails that makes the difference. So if what I did was I grabbed his foot and drug him back to where he fell the first time, the difference between great leaders, the difference between great people, the difference between people that grow and people that don't, it's the people that recognize I'm right where I fell down, I can get back up.
Right here.
Right here. I can stand back up. And so at first it's frustrating and it's a mental battle. So it takes maybe a month to stand, but you start getting better and better and better. And you see people that are almost unshaken in the storm. And it's like, that's the type of person that I want to be able to be. And which is why, even going back, that's why we pivoted back to the spiritual disciplines.
Oh yeah, because in the end, you know, every crisis, every struggle is an opportunity. Yeah. I've led staff for a lot of years now, and I've had people that are just starting to lead staff, and they come to me and there are some staff that they leave and everybody's like, yeah, okay, we're good. There are other staff that leave and it's just crushing. You know, because what am I going to do now? You know, and all of them hurt, but some are just crushing. And I've had people multiple times come to me and say, well, this person's left, and I'm just crushed by this. And I'm like, look, I know this is not what you wanted, but even though this feels like a hurt, it's also an opportunity. In coronavirus, this pandemic, it's a hurt. But for everybody out there, it's also an opportunity. The question is an opportunity to what for you? Because God's got something for every one of us that we're going to carry out of this. And it's going to make us, what's the old phrase? It's going to make us better, or it's going to make us bitter. And we might as well make the choice through solitude, through prayer, through the basics, the Word of God, working our way, taking the first step. We can make the choice to let this make us better.
God will do the things that somebody that wants to pursue, and somebody that's driven and has these big goals, so they feel like they have to work their fingers to the bone. God will do more in a moment than you can accomplish in 30 years.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
And if we can trust him in that, it doesn't just allow you to be more peaceful in the moments of suffering and understand in the moments of suffering, but it gives you this even place to always come back to.
Right.
Because even when Jesus was sad, or when he was angry or frustrated, or when he was happy, or when he was here. And he always came back to that place so fast, and realizing that we don't have to live there, I think, is so important.
The college I sit on the board of, the president of the college, in the darkest days of the college, and there are always dark, every year there's dark days, so he'll call me up and talk to me about it. His phrase, one of his favorite phrases that he ends most conversations with is, "But God's got this." And you know what? Even right now, God's got this, and he's going to make us better in the middle of it. So thanks for joining us today. And I just want to encourage you, as you are looking for your new normal, as you're looking to grow in this time that has been so disjointed for us, I want you to find resources, find podcasts, find books, find anything you can that, to use the phrase Curtis used, that spends more money on the inside of your mind than the outside of your head. And so start developing the way you think. And if you need help with ideas on books or resources, contact your campus pastor, because we push them through a lot of these resources. Contact one of the staff pastors if you're at one of our larger churches, and let us know what you're working on, and we will help you, all right? Now, if this has helped you today, be sure and like, subscribe, share, and comment. Let others know that this resource is here. And join us again next time for Let's Talk.